one day my husband wakes up and he says, Pat, I think we should adopt a little girl. And, so I practiced that submission thing, and I said, are you crazy? We have 2 sons, and at this time, God had called us to open Tampa's first crisis pregnancy center. So he healed us from our abortion and called us to open the pregnancy center. And this was a new movement. I'm sure you're familiar with them now. There are about 3,000 pregnancy centers around the nation. So we were the first one in Tampa. So we were putting this pregnancy center together, and so I said, no way, you're crazy. And he goes to work that day, and he gets a call from an attorney that he works with, and the attorney says, Mike, do you happen to know anybody who wants to adopt a little girl?
Oh my goodness.
And Mike says, well, I don't think it's Pat. We just had this conversation this morning, though, but we are new Christians, and we're learning to, trust God, and this has got to be a divine appointment. So the attorney starts to tell my husband about this baby. He says, it's, I just got, the legal paperwork on this baby. She was born in a hospital here in Tampa. Her birth mother was a teenager. She was visiting her grandparents for the summer. She started to have stomach pain. So the grandparents took her to the emergency room. They sent her to the bathroom to give a urine specimen, and she starts screaming. She has delivered a baby. And so they start screaming, the nurses and all come running in there. They scoop this baby up. They take the baby to the doctors, and they, check the baby out. It's amazing that the nurse that was involved in that just told me a story the other day that they do all these tests on these little tiny babies to kind of determine their life value. Is this child going to live or not live, or, So they determined that the baby was about 22 weeks gestation, and she weighed about 1.5 pounds. And so there was this nurse on duty. They were told, the baby's gonna die. She's not gonna live. She's too little. They instructed the nurse to wrap the baby up and just let her die naturally. But this nurse was a believer, and she wraps this little baby up who is 10 inches long. She is estimated 1.5 pounds, 22 weeks gestation. All the scores say 0, no life here. And this nurse wraps this baby up in a blanket, and she starts walking around, waiting for the baby to die, praying for this baby. And the baby starts trying to breathe and live. And so the nurse takes her back to the doctor and says, Doctor, this baby's not gonna die. She's trying to live. We have to try to help her. And the doctor says, take her back. We've been instructed not to revive her. So the nurse takes the baby back, and she's waiting, praying. What am I supposed to do, God? The baby keeps fighting for her life. So the nurse decides there's times when you obey man's law, and there are times when you obey God's law. And she takes the baby, and she sneaks up an elevator, takes the baby to the neonatal intensive care unit and weighs the baby. The baby weighs 688 grams. By law in the state of Florida, if a baby weighs 650 grams or more, you have to try to revive them. So the nurse takes the baby back downstairs and says, Doctor, this baby is going to live and not die. And you have to try to revive them. So that's what happened. So this nurse puts them, backs them into a corner. They take this baby in. They start caring for her. They care for her around the clock for 3 days. And so that's when the baby does live. She keeps living and thriving. And that's when the attorney called my husband.
Tell us where the baby is now.
My baby is now 25.
That baby.
Yeah.
That little bitty baby.
Yeah.
And she's your daughter.
She's my daughter.
And your husband's daughter,
Yes.
who heard the Lord.
Yes.
And that nurse, and a miracle occurred.